The airport can't just pay to expand the road out there because so many people driving Peña these days aren't going to the airport. Colorado's Republican candidates are instructed to get behind raw milk and getting rid of the CIA. Their homes burned in the Marshall Fire. Then their assessment said the properties went up in value.
It's unique, right? These are very unique properties. These are not like the rest of the county.
That is one big hailstone. Now it's officially a Colorado record after a trip across state lines in a cooler. Tonight on Next. Coloradans who saw their homes burn in the Marshall Fire then saw the county assessor come in and tell them that their properties had actually increased in value. Our Mark Salinger asked the assessor how that makes sense.
In the days after the Marshall Fire, all the devastation was added up. More than $500 million in damages.
We walked door to door or driveway to driveway, since there were no doors, and just took an inventory of what homes had been destroyed.
1,084 homes burned in the state's most destructive fire ever.
It was a lot of value.
Cynthia Braddock tallied up the damage as the assessor in Boulder County. Nearly 2 years later, she's tasked with calculating how much a burned lot, a half-built home, and a new house are worth.
It's unique, right? These are very unique properties. These are not like the rest of the county.
Not even a wildfire that destroyed everything in its path could stop property values from going up. Of the 140,000 properties in Boulder County, the median increase was 35%. The homes burned by the fire were not immune.
The Marshall Fire properties were exceptional and harder to work because the state law says that when you lose your home in a natural disaster, the land stays on as residential.
That means Cynthia and her team must still value the land through the same algorithm the rest of the state uses for residential property. From there, they take value away if a house hasn't started construction or is only partially built. But while they usually use the number of bedrooms or bathrooms, for example, to value a home, that's all changed now.
What we were looking at is this lot is this many square feet. It's got this kind of a view. It's located in this neighborhood compared to this one, which might be smaller.
Similar tactics to how they value vacant land. But it's complicated and there can be mistakes. Of the nearly 1,100 properties destroyed in the fire, 363 owners appealed their initial property valuation. Tomorrow, 61% of them will find out their appeal was successful. And if you appealed, all those appeals are getting sent out in the mail tomorrow. Now, the state's mass property valuation system is based on models that look at how much other homes in the neighborhood or the area have sold for recently. Only 30 homes sold in all the neighborhoods impacted by the Marshall Fire recently, giving the assessor's office very little data to go off of. Combine that with the sky-high rocket prices for all those homes over the state that have sold over the last couple of years, and property values, Kyle, went up even in neighborhoods that burned.
And while this fire was unprecedented, this process they went through afterwards was not. There is a blueprint on how to do it.
Yeah, the Boulder County Assessor's Office reached out to people like the Larimer County Assessor's Office and the El Paso County Assessor's Office, who have both dealt with these massive wildfires in the last decade or so in which hundreds of homes burned. And they've also had to do this, saying, hey, this is how you do it.
All right, Mark Salinger, thank you. The Colorado Libertarian Party is out with its list of requirements for Republican candidates in Colorado. Now, if you're curious how the Libertarians, with fewer than 40,000 members in Colorado, can set the agenda for Republicans who have more than 900,000 registered voters, well, you are asking the right question. It's because of a deal struck by the new Republican Party Chairman Dave Williams to keep Libertarian candidates out of close races. Libertarians get to decide who they like. So, let's look at these libertarian requirements for Republicans. GOP candidates at the state level are being asked to support raw milk, oppose mandatory vaccinations, and ban red light cameras. Republicans at the federal level are being asked to pledge that they will immediately work to pull funding from Ukraine, abolish the Department of Education, back pardons for whistleblowers Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, and work to abolish U.S. intelligence agencies. This Republican-Libertarian alliance is likely to serve essentially as a purity test to keep moderate Republicans out of races, which is a stated goal of GOP Chairman Dave Williams. But it could also inadvertently snare some of his favorite far-right Republican stars, like Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, because the chair of the state Libertarian Party told us in June they might still give Boebert a challenger.
Is Lauren Boebert a strong Liberty candidate? That is to be determined. I don't necessarily think that Lauren Boebert is a strong Republican, or she is a strong Republican. She's not a strong Liberty candidate, in my opinion.
We'll see where she stands on abolishing the CIA and the FBI. Boebert, of course, won her race by just 546 votes last year without a Libertarian in the race. Just recently, a Libertarian did register to run against Boebert. He's a perennial candidate and cannabis activist, so we'll be watching to see if he stays in that race. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston told you during the campaign that he would only serve 2 terms max and that he would support lowering the term limit from 3. Well, now there are some city council members who want to actually put that in front of voters next year. City councilors Amanda Sawyer and Amanda Sandoval are working on a ballot measure that would limit local officials to 2 consecutive 4-year terms. Right now, you can do 3 4-year terms. That would bring Denver's term limits in line with state and federal limits. Denver voters approved that additional 3rd term back in 2000. Sawyer and Sandoval say they surveyed more than 600 people in Denver and found that a majority of them supported a 2-term limit. Those who didn't like it were worried about too much turnover. The councilwomen are still working on a final proposal that City Council could put on the 2024 ballot. Aurora mayoral candidate Rob Andrews is dropping out and endorsing Aurora mayoral candidate Juan Marcano as Democrats try to coalesce to defeat Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman, who's a Republican. Kaufman narrowly won a 5-way race in 2019, although there were other Republicans in that race. Municipal races in Colorado are nonpartisan, so nobody's running on a party line officially. Andrews, who is leaving this race, currently runs the nonprofit Community Works. He's going to be backing City Council member and Democratic Socialist Juan Marcano, who's been a vocal critic of Mayor Kaufman. The busy road to the airport is full of cars that are not going to the airport. 1 in 4 cars on Peña Boulevard is headed somewhere else. As the airport rules out building another free lane of traffic to ease congestion, our Marshall Zellinger looks at other possible fixes.
If you're supposed to get to the airport about 2 hours before your flight, you need to leave a lot earlier to navigate the traffic jam that is Peña Boulevard.
I help people move in every mode of transportation aside from the actual airplanes at the airport.
Lisa Wynn is responsible for getting passengers to their planes before they even get to the airport.
This is a pretty extensive flowchart. I'll be honest, we were trying to not overwhelm folks with...
This flowchart that could challenge that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has one key element. The future of Peña Boulevard will not come with a new general purpose lane. You know it as a free driving lane.
A general purpose lane is induced demand, right? That's not conducive to what our regional goals are.
DIA makes loads of money on landing and gate fees, retail and concessions, and parking. But the airport cannot pay for any changes to Peña Boulevard by itself. That's because the road built for the airport sees 27% of the traffic go somewhere besides the airport. So 27% of the cost needs to be paid from somewhere else.
It could be a federal grant, a state grant, could come potentially from municipal dollars, but it needs to come from non-airport revenue funds.
Let's look at Peña Boulevard by the numbers. When DIA opened in 1995, 75,000 vehicles traveled the road daily. At its peak in 2019, 138,000 vehicles a day. It dropped after COVID and is climbing again to almost 129,000 a day. Estimates from the Denver Regional Council of Governments have households within 5 miles of Peña doubling from 127,000 to 250,000 by 2050, and the number of jobs in the area growing from 238,000 to 400,000. So the solutions, if a lane is added, will be some version of these 6 options, from an HOV lane to a bus-only lane to a toll lane or some combination of a few of these.
Our hope is that it isn't a big traffic jam all times a day.
Where does transit fall into this in RTD? There are some statistics that both directions, the A line could handle 98,000 people a day, and currently, as of 2022, it was 10,000 using it, so the capacity is there for people to use the A line. I asked what is probably a silly question, Kyle. Could the airport just accidentally drop $50 million somewhere, and then someone from the city of Denver is like, oh, there's a briefcase with $50 million, and then use that to pay for what DIA is not supposed to pay for? The short answer is no.
No. And every bucket of money in the city has got a bunch of people standing around already saying, we want that money for X.
Right, and so DIA, or the Peña Boulevard, is a bike lane too, and so there's going to be bike infrastructure. But the Denver Bicycle Lobby says instead of the 27%, there's $5 million that the Regional Council of Governments is going to probably give to this project.
Yeah.
And Denver Bicycle Lobby is like, instead of doing that, why don't you use that $5 million on a bike lane from Spear Boulevard on Broadway, from Spear Boulevard to Civic Center instead? And it's DIA makes loads of money. Bicycle Lobby saying, I know you make loads of money, but go find this other 27% somewhere else, not from this group that we want this money from.
To be continued. All right, Marshall, thank you. The state is asking a judge to let the new age limit for gun purchases stand while a legal challenge works through the courts. Last week, the gun rights group Rocky Mountain Gun Owners won a temporary restraining order against the new state law that raises the minimum age to purchase a gun from 18 to 21 years old. A district court judge blocked that law from taking effect for the time being. Democratic Governor Jared Polis is appealing. He argues that the law should be on the books while this challenge proceeds. The state's appeal to the court calls the age limit a public safety issue. Students in Adams 14 School District are beginning their second week of school, and their teachers are doing the best to make this a productive and fun year as that district goes through a pretty stressful state-ordered reorganization process. You helped grant more of those teachers' wishes for projects and trips that the district could not otherwise afford because your latest Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign raised $14,000 plus for funding the unfunded. That is the Adams 14 Education Foundation's grant program where they help teachers do more to reach more kids, basically funding teachers' great ideas. Email your ideas of other terrific nonprofit projects anywhere in our state to next@9news.com.
And this spray right here, this is just to keep it cold so it doesn't melt.
It was billed as the largest hailstone ever seen in Colorado. To make that official, it involved a race of sorts with a melting hailstone inside a cooler. And a researcher here is helping to study a subatomic particle gone wild. His work could just change how we understand our world. That's next. The biggest piece of hail ever recorded in Colorado spent the last week sitting in a freezer in Kansas. It was awaiting an official measurement from the National Weather Service. Well, it turns out those weather wizards had all the proof they needed all along. The hailstone was officially measured today at the National Weather Service in Goodland, Kansas. It fell in Yuma County, Colorado last Tuesday, part of that powerful storm that dropped an EF3 tornado near Yuma. Special 3D scan measured the hailstone at 4.6 inches, but it's going down in Colorado's record books as a 5.25-inch stone. That was the initial measurement from the storm chaser who found it.
He measured it in the best way you can measure it and took photographic evidence, so I think everyone felt pretty comfortable with using that photo as the record.
It's because he's a pro. The man behind the big hailstone is a dude named Dan Fitz. He's a storm chaser from Nebraska. This is not his first rodeo because he carries a cooler with him on his chases just in case. A crispy donkey, he probably has got like a ham sandwich in there as well, but he knows that if he finds big hail, he can drop it in the cooler. You have to be a pretty skilled storm chaser to know when is it safe to run out amongst 5-inch hailstones to start picking them up. You get beamed by one of those, I imagine it's good night moon.
Exactly, Kyle. In fact, for a bit of context, I actually have the picture that Dan Fitz took right behind me.
Let's get after it.
And again, this is pretty big. Just to put a little bit of context to that, this, I don't know, I was awkwardly walking around the newsroom looking for something that was about 5 inches in diameter. This is the closest thing I could find. This is a pen holder, flower vase, whatever it is. This is about the size of that. And so imagine this falling 2 miles. Obviously, when we're talking about hail this big, that is in clear danger territory. But there it is, that 5.25-inch hailstone now verified as the largest hailstone on record in the state of Colorado. Now, the forecast we had over the next few days, it's going to really heat on up. It's dry this week, and then mountain storms sticking around for most of the upcoming couple of days. Seeing some of those shower storms in the part of the state that needs it the most, the San Juans, San Cristos. If you're joining us from the Front Range, you know it's been a very wet start to our summer. Very different picture for us in the San Juans and the San Cristos. So good to see some needed rainfall in that part of the state. But those shower storms will kind of gradually dry up as we head over the next couple of hours, and that'll give way to a sunny start to our day tomorrow. But the story for us in eastern Colorado today, how cool, how blissfully cool it was, right? I mean, upper 70s, low 80s, middle of August, we'll take that, right? It was very comfortable out there for today. Tomorrow, slightly different stories. Highs right around 90 degrees. Lots of sunshine for us, but into the mountains. That's where we could see some of those showers and storms sticking around. And that 7-day forecast is just a lot of heat. Temperatures in the mid-90s for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'll say this here as well. Friday, a couple of computer forecast models get us pretty close to 100 degrees, so it's going to be toasty for the next few days.
He related our results to the Force in Star Wars.
Scientists in Colorado is part of an international team that's tracking an unseen force of nature. 2 years ago, a team of scientists really captured the interest of sci-fi fans when they raised an important question. Is the Force a real thing? They're still studying why some subatomic particles called muons are not acting the way they think that they should, and whether they're being influenced by the Force. A professor from Regis University is part of this team is putting the laws of physics into question.
So this reconfirms the result that we released a little over 2 years ago, where we found a discrepancy that provided a strong hint that we were seeing physics beyond the standard model. I'm Fred Gray. I'm a professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at Regis University, and I enjoy working on research projects that involve subatomic particles called muons. A muon is a subatomic particle that's kind of like an electron, but about 200 times heavier. I work on an experiment at Fermilab, which is a national laboratory located out in the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm part of a large international team that has done an experiment there where we have studied a subatomic particle called the muon, and we can compare that to a prediction of the standard model of particle physics, and we find that there's a difference. These plastic triangles up at the top produce light when subatomic particles like muons zip through them. Muons only live for an average of about 2.2 millionths of a second. We are constantly exposed to muons in the form of cosmic rays. For our previous result, we were really pleased that Luke Skywalker, that is Mark Hamill, took some interest in what we had published, and he related our result to the Force in Star Wars. Here at Regis, we worked on these detectors that are called the fiber harps that are part of the experiment at Fermilab. For the students, this is really a benefit of attending an institution like Regis where, you know, our small class sizes do make it possible for them to have these kinds of opportunities.
These latest findings are not conclusive. Researchers are hoping that they'll get there in the next few years. That's why I love your feedback. It is always conclusive, no vagaries at all, and it's next. We still did live. Feedback tonight from Blake, who writes, the Colorado GOP is a train wreck. Bring back the A-team. Blake, we've had one GOP governor in Colorado in the last 50 years. I say this with all respect. When precisely was the A-team on the field? Dan Herman writes in to say, how come CDOT does not seem to use flow reversing lanes? You know, like those commuter lanes you'll see in other states where they're going one way in the morning and they'll go one way at night. Dan was thinking that they might be useful out on Peña. That seems tougher to me. I guess the airport must have higher and lower volume times, but it seems like there's an awful lot of people coming and going. If you know of a flow reversing lane somewhere in Colorado, would you let me know? And I'll see you next time.